thanks so much for taking the time today. Telling us a bit about the story, how you built the world's best vending machine company of the 21st century. We met, I think, 3.5 years ago, when you were just starting out at zero. Now you do 10 million in annual revenue and are on a good path towards 100. Can you tell us a bit more about how it all started and what you set out to do with Boostbar?
I think we met actually 3 years ago, because that's when we did start.
True.
In the summer, in the middle of a lockdown. So we started Boostbar actually to service the whole market of unattended food and beverage. I'm coming from the industry. I was CEO of the European market leader, Selecta. I quit the company and I set out to build my own company, Boostbar, with my co-founder back then. Both myself and my co-founder were ex-consultants, and people think consultants know everything. Actually, consultants know about everything, and especially they've never done any sales. And you had published a video about choosing CRM, and we contacted you, effectively asking you to implement Salesforce.
Yeah, and I told you, like, okay, either I kill this deal or like I gain some respect in this conversation. And I was like, look, I've been a sales with them in 4 years. I don't recommend you to start with Salesforce and doing the whole quote to cash. And they want to do that, I think, revenue recognition, the whole inventory management, everything. So I just asked you, being, how much revenue are you doing? And they said, like, well, 0. I was like, well, don't build a very enterprisey setup. Like, you paid my salary at Accenture for 3 years, but go with something more nimble, such as HubSpot. I think you're still using HubSpot today. Can you tell us a bit more about your journey on building your sales engine since then? And also what you learned, how it's different going from 0 to 1 to 10 million versus running it at like $1 billion company, such as Selecta.
Yeah. No, we still are on HubSpot, and I think that's where you've been helpful in the journey. Of course, coming from the industry, we have a tendency to over-engineer things. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of, guys like you posting about sales engines and lead generation, etc. So when you get starting, it's quite intimidating because you think you need to get all these techniques and technologies and tools. In the end, quite honestly, and what we had to learn the hard way, we didn't close a single deal the first 6 months. It's just picking up the phone and calling companies, and the tool is just there to keep record. And probably up to your first deal, you could also run it in Excel.
Yeah, and I think you technically could. It's just very hard, and in retrospective, to get it into CRM. And I know companies that hit 7-figure annual revenue and they do it in Excel, and then the father wanted to go on vacation or do something, and I was like, well, it's all in my head and my Gmail inbox. So I think it's good that you got past like an easy use it in the first place. But I think like regarding the consulting part, like some McKinsey consultants actually are our best clients because they know what they're really great at and they know what they're not so good at. So they really great at understanding structure, like knowing what they don't know as well. And I think you came out and said like, look, I know how to do networking sales. I know like how to get deals done. And that's where I come from. And McKinsey, KKR, Boostbar, and Selecta. But I've never built sales from 0 to 1 million. And you also mentioned like, hey, even if the case says like 0 to 1 million in 12 months, we did in more like 6 because the first 6 months were just dedicated to finding what's called message market fit. Can you tell us a bit more about what do you mean by that? Like what did you do in the first 6 months?
That's a good question. We built a perfect product that we never sold. And to your point, I mean, McKinsey consultants are your best clients. I think that there's a selection bias of the ones that survived long enough to be able to afford it. I think consulting brings a lot of good inputs, but certainly what people from other industries know much better is just to pick up the phone and run. And we're not taught that at school, like business school. They have entrepreneurship courses, and it's all about explaining why a business is positioned strategically in a certain way. Also, conversations with VCs are incredibly focused on strategic topics which will matter in 4 or 5 years. But at the beginning, it's just, is the team hungry and picking up the phone? And does have the resources and is able to mobilize the resources to adapt the product or not? And if you ask why we succeeded, and I think you've seen the state of our HubSpot, I've been told it's worse in practice. in the industry or close to it?
No, there's like a Hall of Fame, and you're not ranked in the top 10, to be honest.
Of bad or of good?
Of interesting practices. We've seen CRM set up in GitHub buckets, so like we've used to.
No, so we're not that bad, but I think the main point on how we got there, I think it was really putting a team together, and owning sales as the founders teaming up to a point where it was replicable. And I think what you see when you Google online for how do you build a sales engine, or when I'm in different, I talk to founders in these famous WhatsApp groups, I so often read, I've built the perfect product, now I just need a head of sales, or people booking sales coaches to get lead generation up, etc. In the end, you need to be able to close the first sale. I think then if you get support and someone as a sparring partner to make it scalable, and that's where you play the big role. But in the end, if as a founder or if in the founding team you don't have a person who can sell, you will go nowhere because you need the sale.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be to understand what your product is.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's also you need the feedback loops to actually understand like what are the concerns, like what messages resonate well with the ideal customer who's really successful. So outsourcing sales before anything like 2 to 3 million annual revenue, like it's a terrible idea. Like the 3 Ps as well, like paid advertising, paid product-led growth, and like partner sales. Everybody wants to do that because it seems free. They don't do anything, and it always fails below like this 1, 2, 3 million threshold. And I still have like a picture from you and Johannes, like I think it was like 11 p.m. Johannes sitting in front of an internet screen and calling was like, I start to enjoy this. Like people reply to these campaigns. I've never done this before. And I found a way how I can set up like 2 campaigns a week and actually send out emails. Like people reply, we book some calls. But you invested in this yourself. I think you can skip some trial and errors, but you really invested in the sales as a core competence. How would you say that affected also your trajectory to go from 1 to 10 million within roughly just 3 years?
Yeah, and I know you would like me to fish out the recipe that made it work. I think it's a lot of the usual macro factors, market timing, and people that were in there. But certainly doing it ourselves and also training up our first commercial employees early on to do it themselves made us truly understand the market in every detail. I mean, we're selling services into businesses in Switzerland. The list of companies that we could sell to is limited. In theory, within 2 years with 5 people, we could be talking to every single company and ask them what they need and then build the perfect product. And effectively, that's the journey we started early on. Is we didn't get any shortcuts to customers. I think COVID helped us there. And also what we realized very quickly, it's very nice to have a big network of lots of C-levels, and even our own investors didn't help us to close deals in their own companies. So, but in the end, there was all a benefit because it forced us very, very early on to adapt the product. I think if we had founded outside of COVID, we would probably close 5-6 deals early on. Yeah, with a product that was useless. Or at least only would have satisfied the niche.
And I think that's was truly impressive, but also was helpful. And people always told me like, yeah, but Boostbar, like a vending machine company during COVID in offices, it can never work. Right? This will go bankrupt. People need hybrid workplace solutions, and e-signature and virtual collaboration, which also did well. But I think you proved also that this constraint, this forcing for actually you need to have a conversation with people, that you need to find message by being really quick in product market based on that. That inside you offer a much more robust scope. And also, I mean, you mentioned how we got to sit here. I think you sent me a WhatsApp like, hey, look, you're going to hit like 10 million, but I think we're more profitable. Can we sit down? So I think this is truly impressive that you managed to go from 0 to 10 million annual revenue in just 3 years. It typically takes companies like 7 to 10 to do that if they ever achieve it, but you did it so with profitable unit economics. And I think that also shows that you're not trading like $1 for 80 cents, but actually creating value, and you're actually able to do so at scale. Because now
not only profitable unit economics, we're profitable P&L since last month.
Yeah.
No, of course we were in a different vertical, right? to be fair, the SaaS companies, when they do it scales, the economics can be incredible. But I think it's a much riskier bet. With very solid economics, we don't depend on any future success to make, contracts work that we will. The recurring revenues are truly long term. I mean, not everyone likes the fact that there's hardware involved in what we do. I like to say we have, with the margin or the economics of SaaS, with the stickiness of the hardware business, with super long retention. So whatever we build is we bank on in the following year, and it just provides a really, really stable basis, which saved us several times. It saved us through COVID, and it saved us when I got sick and had to step out the business for 5 months, and there was no growth. So it is quite a traditional business model that we're scaling up.
And it is a very, very real world problem, right? Like 90% plus of people take caffeine in coffee. Most of them, like on a daily basis, people need food, and you're solving a real problem and not something like AI on a blockchain to have like an NFT and like the hype comes and goes. But like your product actually is used by people about Switzerland and even beyond that every single day. I think what was interesting when you mentioned also like, hey, it's much more robust from a business model. You also mentioned like, hey, we hired some first salespeople, like I still remember fondly, like, hey, we had this Dutch guy, Dice on the block. That's like, hey, I'm the Hollander. I can speak Swiss German, but it's been quite successful. And you hired a lot of like really great salespeople. You also had your fair share of experience of like hiring a head of sales or that worked better or like where you've been less well over time. What was your experience in hiring sales talent? Because you once mentioned like, hey, that's one of the hardest functions to staff also throughout your whole career.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, it probably isn't the hardest function to staff. But when I said it was hard, it's because I didn't have product market fit. And I basically brought in salespeople to do my job, which was kind of a founder-led sales, understanding what the product is and what the pricing is. And I think importantly, when we talk product market fit and people talk about it in a very abstract sense, and they tend to think really about the product itself, but it really is, are you able to explain the product? The pricing model is easy for your salespeople to use. And I brought in salespeople when the job wasn't really sales, but it was, effectively it was building their own mini business inside Boostbar, right? So I was looking for people like
for the pilots to build a plane.
Exactly. And I think the topic is much more, if you find, my conviction now, if you have a business and you think it's really hard to onboard sales and make them successful, then you're doing something wrong. And I think that at latest when you have 10 people selling for you, if you have one or two who don't perform, it probably is them. If you have more than half of them who don't perform, it definitely is you. And it's hard to admit, but it's the most important thing is to realize that, and I tell that my team all the time, like we can blame someone in your team if it's one person, but if it's half the team, comes with the same complaint, it's you, and it's up to us to fix it.
Yeah, and I think that's what goes wrong so many times on like roughly 250K to like 1.25 million ARR. That founders basically don't make this admission, which you've always been really honest, like, hey, look, I think like this we need to fix, this is on me, this is on team. It's like, I've seen founders go out there and say like, hey, my head of sales doesn't know what they're doing, and my 3 reps are bad, my head of marketing doesn't work, and my customers don't get it, like they're all stupid. Because like, if like 5 out of 5 of the other people are stupid, like you might need to fix it for better or worse, because otherwise you just don't have a business.
Usually, right? Unless you hire people straight out of nursery, you hire people and they come with CVs and they've achieved stuff in life. So at least in individual contributors, I assume it's our responsibility to make them successful. And we've quite often hired people into one role and it didn't work in that role, and then in another role they performed really well. I think maybe on the sales hiring itself, there's always a question, when are you ready to hire someone?
Right.
And Thijs, my first sales employee, when he joined at some point in a frustrated moment, he said, no, but Pascal, I know that you're selling and that it's easy for you, but everything is in your head and it's not on paper. Like, I don't know all the stuff that you didn't know. That's the first thing, right? So if you want to hand over sales, you need to be able to document it and explain it in very easy terms. And secondly, it is easy to close deals as a founder if half the deals you're basically saying yes, new features that you don't have yet. If you want to scale, of course you cannot do that.
Right.
And that's where in our setup, what paid back in the end was to be quite patient with sales hires, and just to have the ingoing assumption that if they don't sell, we've got own work to do, because especially your first hire is usually pretty good.
Or if they don't sell what the product is. And I think for us, like having consulting background, we used to having a client ask us like, hey, Pascal, can you do this? And your default answer is yes. And then you go back and you figure it out and deliver the project. And then you basically replace client name basically that client does. And product sales are actually different, but we cannot just change the vending machine to be a car tomorrow. In the beginning, it's tempting to do that, but I also had this like in 2020 with my first sales hire, and then like my coach immediately had a session with like my colleague. As they're like, hey, do you have a sales script? I was like, yes. I was like, well, does it work? Like, yeah, I think so. Like, doesn't matter follow the script as a founder. It's like, not at all. Like, he always does like different stuff, like in founder stories and so on. I was like, does it work? Like, yes, he does, but I cannot replicate it. So I did the sales playbook builds that, is pun intended, a bit. It needs to be there for the reps as well. And if it doesn't work for the reps, then you say it doesn't quite work. Then it's just like a founder magic, right?